What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. Happy spring break-ish. I guess you can scratch that. It's not a very happy spring break at all, is it? Day 12 of the coronavirus pandemic, shutdown of sports. Danny West is going to join us. We're going to answer your questions, all that and more on Hog Sports Live. So like I was saying, today is the official start of spring break, but obviously most people have been on some kind of a break, aside from those healthcare workers and essential personnel out there doing work for us. You're handling it a little better than you thought without sports, aren't you? I mean, there's been some stuff. At least we've got recruiting, and I want to go ahead and bring in Danny West here before we go much further. Again, we're going to answer your questions at the end, and they don't roll off anymore, so you can bring up your questions, and we will, of course, be able to get to all of those. Danny, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Trey. Just trying to get caught up on all these guys releasing their top 12 and top 13 schools. I guess everybody's choosing to do that on spring break this week, so trying to get some work done. Not
to put in light the work that people are doing out there, but your job is also essential at this time too, to keep us entertained. There is some recruiting stuff going on. We spoke with Sam Pittman the other day, and he kind of broke down some stuff in recruiting. We'll get into some of the content that came out of there, but I want to talk about recruiting stuff a little bit, and just kind of the chain of command. That was a question that I think a few of our users had. What can you tell us about just what he was saying about how recruits are offered scholarships?
I thought it was interesting, especially for the kids within the state. You know, Sam Pittman has to be a major part of that. He wants to be in on every decision that's made within the state. In fact, an offer is not going out until he's 100% sure. You know, we see it every year, Trey. A lot of these guys, they'll blow up. There's a couple in the state right now that have yet to be offered by Arkansas, but they've got Tennessee and Virginia and, you know, places like this. And I think a lot of people forget it's easy for those teams to come in here and offer early. They don't have to stick by it.
Right.
And we talk about this every spring. But Arkansas, if they offer and they eventually find something they don't like about the kid, whether he's too slow, not quite as tall, whatever the case may be, they can't really pull that offer.
Right.
They just, I mean, you can't burn a bridge like that. So I thought Pittman, he took the long way around it there, but I thought that's really what he was getting down to, where he has to be 100% sure about an in-state kid. And, you know, I think he feels good about what they've done so far. A lot of offers within the state for that 2022 class. That was one of my biggest takeaways from Friday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he felt like they were really behind on the 22 class. Now I think they're catching up in a rapid hurry here. They've really been targeting quite a few 22s so far.
Danny West joining us on the hotline. Now, that is a really good point, and that's something that we talk about a lot. If you offer a kid from inside the state, you dang sure better be sure you want him, because there is a lot of negative publicity that surrounds. Anytime I've ever seen a player who's been offered a scholarship and the coaches back off or something like that, it's always a little negative firestorm. I mean, I've seen it. You see it, you know, a couple of times during the Houston Nutt era. There was a couple of different instances where it kind of blew up negatively for them. And there's been some other instances like that. But if Alabama comes in and offers a prospect, a lot of times it's that non-evaluation, we want to get in the game early type of offer, and it won't mean a thing to Nick Saban if he has to pull that offer later down the road. For Arkansas, it's a different story. So, again, Danny West joining us. Most of Danny's stuff is VIP. I want to remind everybody there's plenty of ways to watch and listen before we go any further. Facebook Live, of course, be sure to follow the channel on Facebook Live. Throw us a thumbs up if you like the video, and be sure to comment. Also on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified anytime we upload a new video, and also throw us a like there. Also, Apple Podcasts, throw us a 5-star review if you like the content. We want our channel to pop up anytime somebody searches Arkansas Razorbacks, and available anywhere you can think of to find your favorite podcast. Also, got to mention, sign up for our daily newsletter so you will get our free content, and also any breaking news we will send to your inbox. This is especially important during the coronavirus pandemic as anything relates to your Razorbacks. We will send breaking news to your email inbox. And again, most of our free content is there. Today is also the last day to sign up for 50% off an annual VIP membership. That will end at 10:59 p.m. tonight. So if you want Hog Sports, you want to think ahead because sports will return. Things will come back, and of course there is still plenty of VIP recruiting coverage because that's really the main thing that they've got right now. Sam Pittman has said that's one area that they're really amping things up, and we'll talk more about that with Danny. But if you want that, just like most stuff out there, now's a good time to buy at 50% off. So that's what's going on right now on the website. I want to, again, remind you, throw us a thumbs up if you like the content. It really helps the algorithm. I don't like saying that every single episode. It gets redundant, but people respond when you do. So, Danny, as I was mentioning, Arkansas is amping up things in recruiting. What are some of the things that they're doing to turn the focus more to recruiting?
Yeah, a lot of new offers for the 22 class, as I mentioned there, but they've sent out a couple of videos on their Twitter account. The official Arkansas Razorback football recruiting account has put out a couple of new videos, and I think they've done a good job of that. Obviously, you can't bring kids on campus right now, so you've kind of got to go to the kids. I thought it was interesting last week. Kansas, of all places, actually held a virtual junior day, prospect day, so to speak, to where, kids came to them. They invited like 30 kids, which I'm not sure you're really supposed to invite, but that's a different topic for another day. But some of their top targets, they kind of gave a virtual tour. They had different segments of time set aside for Les Miles to sit down and FaceTime with them throughout the day, sit down with position coaches and FaceTime. I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
You've got to think outside the box.
Absolutely.
It took Kansas to do it, but I think you're seeing Arkansas do some similar things. Of course, it's spring break. They've got a little bit of time off, but you can bet they're still FaceTiming and talking to mama and daddy and the whole lot, right? So I think so far so good. They're doing the most they can possibly do to work around this thing. It's just really tough when you tell a kid, hey, we want you to come up here. We just don't know when you can yet. You'd feel a lot better being able to set a date. And maybe here in a couple of weeks we can get back to that where we say, let's circle this date as the true, we're getting it back on again on this particular date. So then it might provide a little bit of clarity for some of these kids trying to make it to campus.
Speaking of all that, there's a really crappy article that you wrote about all the canceled visits that for Arkansas. I mean, there's some really impressive names on here. I mean, guys that were planning on coming for the red-white game or, anytime now till then, I guess. And it's a VIP story, so but I will say there's a lot of guys that you would really wish would make it to campus at Arkansas. So it's
unfortunate, but I'll tell you this without giving it away too much. I think for the most part, a lot of those guys are still going to make it. They're still going to make it to campus at some point. I'm not saying it's ideal. There's a couple on there that I think it's over with now.
Yeah.
You're never going to get them on campus now because, they're recruited by everybody, and it's, no disrespect to Arkansas, but you were kind of squeezed in there to begin with,
right,
in terms of getting a visit. So
well, that's kind of where you have to be, though, Danny. I mean, if you're Arkansas, you have to squeeze yourself in there. You're not going to be on like somebody's dream list. You have to have these visit opportunities. I mean, that's something that we've said all the time. All the time. People say that like there's a stigma attached to Arkansas, and the fact of the matter is, every state's got some stigma attached to it, especially states in the Southeast have a lot of stigmas attached to them. And people have this idea that Arkansas is country and backwards and all this stuff until you get them on campus. And it's that beautiful undersell, over-deliver aspect to their visit that turns a lot of prospects onto Arkansas. But you got to get them on campus for that visit. First, you have to overcome that hurdle of any type of stigma. But the thing with Arkansas is, Auburn. I was talking to a guy who's, diehard Auburn type of guy and who's been to Arkansas a lot. And, he was just telling me Auburn doesn't have anything on Arkansas's facilities. I mean, they don't. It's a beautiful town, all this stuff. But the difference is Auburn is an hour away from the Georgia
That's
border.
pretty nice.
And there's a ton, and South Georgia too. There's a ton of talent all through there. I've been all through that state. They're not that far from Atlanta. That's the big difference. And for Arkansas, you really have to get more creative. You got to recruit a lot of different areas, and you got to get them on campus for visits. So that's one area where it might hurt Arkansas a little bit more than other schools. But aside from that, everybody's pretty much in the same boat.
You're telling me there's not very many 5-stars walking around Joplin, Missouri right now?
There's not, unfortunately.
Huntsville, Arkansas.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You bring up something there with the stigma we talked about a couple of weeks ago, flying back and forth from different places, coming to and from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just that stigma lasts right up until really they get all the way back into Fayetteville, because that drive, even after you land, you're flying over a bunch of cows and chicken houses, and all of a sudden now you've got this 40-minute ride back into the city. Yeah, there's a lot to overcome there, and I do think you hit on something there where you talk about over delivering, so to speak. That's it's a really big deal. I'm not sure people can really grasp that. To put yourself in the eyes of a 17-year-old, that's a really big deal. Where perception is everything. Arkansas is not a sexy name right now, so you bring up a good point where it really is a bad negative to not be able to get some of these kids on campus this spring.
Yeah, I mean, we were really talking about it the other day. I just imagine if you're, 17-year-old recruit and it's just fields, I remember when I was doing more recruiting, not as, not like you are now, but and talking to kids, and I remember them saying stuff like, "Oh my," like just looking down at chicken houses as they're about to land, and then driving, and it's just cow pastures. You might see a llama or something out there, and they'd just be like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done? I burned one of my official visits for this."
Looks like a tornado went through there pretty recently.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
If anybody's got any info on that, man, it was.
Yeah, add it to the comments below, because all out there around XNA, Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport, it looks. I mean, there are trees down left and right. I don't know when that happened, but
I don't either. And it's like 10 minutes north of my house. So I'd like to know that. But I'm not all up to date on my current events here, Trey.
Danny, we got a new top-ranked player in the state of Arkansas. I was wondering if you might be able to go over a little bit of what we're looking in the class of 2022. That's shaping up to be a pretty nice-looking class.
It is. Yeah, I think so. Andrew Chamblee, the big offensive lineman.
You cut out, but it's Chamblee, for those who didn't hear that. Andrew Chamblee.
Yeah, sorry about that. Andrew Chamblee out of Maumelle, Arkansas, 2022 offensive lineman. He's gone all the way up to a 4-star now, 6'6", 285. I've got a crystal ball pick in on Arkansas. I think Arkansas is off to a really good start there. But you hit it, Trey. They've offered quite a few in that class so far, with Andrew and Amarion Harris, the big offensive lineman out of Joe T. Robinson.
I could see them battling back and forth for that number 1 spot.
Yeah, I could see that too. A couple of big-time guys there, and that's what you want. Not only those two, but you've got Terry Wells in the 21 class already committed to you. So it's interesting to me how cyclical this can be. Yeah. You can go half a decade with no real quality SEC-type offensive line coming out of the state, and then bam, 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 you've got 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that.
I think a big reason, Danny, is because Arkansas is a smaller state. It's not that big a deal to see Texas go from 390 Division I signees to 420 Division I signees. But for Arkansas to go from it's an okay year. There's 7, quality guys to a year where there's 14 quality guys, and it's just because it's a smaller state. Yeah, you just see that bigger number.
Yeah. But, shaping up to be a really good class. James Joyner, obviously the running back out of Parkview. They recently offered Quincy McAdoo, athlete out of Clarendon. I would recommend people go watch his film.
McAdoo, you think he's a wide receiver, though, right?
Yeah, I think he's a wide out. 6'3", 175. Reminds me so much. I'm going to give you a name here, a blast from the past. Reminds me so much of Defonte Lowe coming out of Bearden. I want to say class of 2011, maybe 12. I think 2012. Can do it all. They ask him to do everything. Small school. but
Boy,
big time
Devontae had a
potential.
lot of potential.
Yeah, he
didn't.
was just kind of couldn't get it together outside of, and I hate that for him because I think he could have played on Sundays. Man, he was really, really talented, and I see a lot of similarities here. I'm not saying this guy's an NFL guy yet, but Quincy McAdoo, you better start getting to know that name a little bit. And then the recently offered wide receiver at Fayetteville, Isaiah Sategna, 5'11", 170, a little bit on the small side, but he can really run. He's 10'8", in the 100 is pretty good. His father is actually a track coach here at the university, so he's going to be able to run that 100 pretty well. So keep an eye on Isaiah as well. They recently offered him about 2 weeks ago.
Danny, I want to switch.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago on today, matter of fact, March 9th.
I want to switch gears real quick to basketball. Justin Turner, there's an article came out from Evan Daniels, who's one of our national basketball recruiting analysts. But Justin Turner out of Bowling Green, a guy that averaged almost 19 points a game, 6'4" guard, is mentioning Arkansas among several schools that have targeted him. It feels like, we talked about Arkansas looking for a big, whether that's high school, grad transfer, junior college, whatever, a guy that, is a strong rebounder type. But it looks like they're also exploring basically anybody who's a possibility. I mean, they pop up on everybody's radar.
I think we've got like 20 guys, and I want to give a shout-out to Alma Razorback on our site. He keeps listing every name that he sees associated with Arkansas on Twitter. We appreciate that. I think we've got about 20 names on the site right now. You mentioned Dustin Turner, 6'4", 205, out of Bowling Green. He's a grad transfer. Ian Dubose, kid out of Houston Baptist, about the same size, 6'4" guy. He averaged 19 points a game as well, 7.3 rebounds. Pete's got more coming on Ian. A lot of names. You got Joshua Morgan out of Long Beach State. Now, there's some size for you. 6'11", 195, 8.4 points, 6 point rebounds per game. Just a lot of really, really I think it ranges, as you talked about there, where I'm looking at 6 foot all the way to 7'3". So in line with what you said, yeah, they're going after a little bit of everything right now. But the Marcusson kid out of Loyola Marymount, hope I'm saying that right, 10.2 rebound or points per game, 6.3 rebounds a game. He's a grad transfer, 7'3", 261 pounds.
I would love for Arkansas to go from being such a short team to having two 7'3" guys on the floor at the same time, and one of them just outside shooting threes, and the other one's inside rebounding. Yeah. That would be awesome.
I'm still curious about this Marfo kid. Can they get him on campus? Well, nobody can get anybody on campus right now, but you know where I'm going. The Quinnipiac transfer, grad transfer, 6'8", 245, but he led the country in rebounds per game this year with 13.3 a game. Curious about that one, man. That one could go a long way.
Hey, there's a kid out in North Carolina, Danny, Jared Wilson, who's trimmed his list and includes Arkansas.
We're going back to football.
Yeah, I just bounced.
Hey,
I'm bouncing all over the place. Yeah, I'm finding news where we can, and we're on record saying that we think that North Carolina it could be a waste of time. But they are putting some effort out there. But the only guys in the time that I've been covering this have come from that area. Is Chris Smith, who turned out to be a really good one. And Quinte Funderburk, who came from Virginia, not North Carolina, but that same general region, who lasted less than a semester at Arkansas. And that's it. That's it for that area. But they're putting some effort in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, that region. They're putting at least a little bit of effort, but remains to be seen if it'll pay off or not.
Well, I'll tell you, the connection here is that Pittman actually had Jared committed to play for him at Georgia. And then, of course, he took the Arkansas job. And Jared Wilson, 6'4", 325. We'll keep talking about some of these big guys.
Yeah.
It's another big one. And he's a big-time dude. I think he listed LSU, Auburn, Florida State, Clemson, Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina as the other 7 there. But, yeah, he's got a close bond with Sam Pittman, obviously. Pittman had him committed to play for Georgia there for a few months. And as soon as he took off, he decommitted. So, Maybe you get a visit at least, but I'm with you on North Carolina. Until it happens for them, they're going to have to prove it to me. I don't see how great the benefit might be there.
Danny West joining us with HawgSports.com. Danny, you don't just write recruiting stuff. You also had an article. So Arkansas came out with their new heights and weights. And heights have generally been the same, except for I believe Myron Cunningham went from 6'6", 290 to 6'7", 293 or something like that. So he's actually listed as an inch taller. But
somebody lost an inch too, as I recall. I forget who it was, but somebody actually got shorter.
That's never a good day.
Yeah.
But particularly on the offensive line, I was looking back to this, and this is another VI. We do a lot of free content. Obviously, we want to take care and make sure that everybody's entertained, but we also have to take care of our VIP subscribers. So we're actually have amped up. Josh Harvey, my contact at 24/7 Sports, said we've actually had more content, here lately since before right before the outbreak. So we are definitely trying to amp up both free and VIP content. A lot of that's centered around recruiting. But when Pittman left Arkansas on the offensive line, this was his left to right offensive line. Denver Kirkland was 6'5", 343. Sebastian Totola was 6'5", 322. Mitch Smothers was 6'3", 315. Bray Cook was listed at 6'4", 322, but I always thought Bray was more like 6'7". But on the official roster, he's listed at 6'4", 322. And Dan Skipper was actually listed at 6'10", 307, but that weight was actually taken right after he had a bad illness. Mm-hmm. And the next weigh in, he checked in at 331, which is an average of 6'5.5", 327 pounds. Again, I still think Bray Cook is taller than 6'4". That he was listed at there. He's easily taller than 6'4". I don't know why he's listed at that, but
no question.
327 pounds, which was the biggest offensive line in football, pro or college. So it's a difference of 34 pounds per man versus what Arkansas had last year. 34 pounds per man, 168 pounds across the offensive line, all total. So just to break it down, this was the offensive line last year. Myron Cunningham, 6'6", 290. Austin Capps, 6'4", 304. Ty Clary, 6'4", 285. Ricky Stromberg, 6'4", 276. And again, Stromberg was actually listed at 266, but we know middle of the season or so and he also had an illness, I believe, and dropped a lot of weight before the season, but middle of the season, he was 276, 279. And then Dalton Wagner at 6'9", 308 for an average of 6'5.5", 293 pounds. That's one of the lightest offensive lines, I should say, in Power 5 football. Amazing to go just 4 years down the road and you go from the biggest to one of the lightest offensive lines. And they've all done a pretty good job. And again, you can read Danny's breakdown at HawgSports.com, and it tells you every single player, right, Danny? Their plus and minus weight all the way down the board, and then of course you went down and broke down the guys that have added a significant amount or lost a significant amount of weight at the very beginning also.
I started out, I was thinking, all right, I'm just going to do guys who did plus 5 or plus 10 pounds and keep this short and simple. Then I thought, well, it's 12:30 in the morning.
We don't do short and simple.
Saturday morning. Might as well. If you're going to do it right. Mm-hmm. So we did every single player, and just anything we could come away with, we wrote about it. So
it's always a fun breakdown.
Their jersey numbers, we've got it all on there. So that offensive line group, that's where it's going to be at, Trey. That's what's going to determine. And also in how much practice time they get, right? But
right.
I think that's going to determine how far along they've come. And you like seeing Shane Clennon and Ty Clary and some of those guys getting quite a bit bigger, but Bo Limmer and Ricky Stromberg again, and getting Noah Gatlin back, I think those three in particular, I think you can build around those three.
Danny, let's hear, and just to point out, Shane Clennon's up 12 pounds. These are the biggest gains. Ty Clary's up 14 pounds. Ryan Winkle's up 12. Austin Nix is up 23. Ricky Stromberg is up 32, but that's, again, him being listed at 266 previously.
Sure.
And, again, we know he was more 276, 279. Drew Vest up 12 pounds, and Dylan Rathke minus 12. And then also we got to mention who's leaving.
Kirby Adcock.
Kirby Adcock is remaining a part of the team in some capacity, but he's no longer going to be a player on the team.
Sounds to me like a medical red shirt.
Yeah,
but I can't confirm that.
You mean a medical
hardship. Medical hardship. Sorry about that.
So that would drop Arkansas's total down to 14 scholarship offensive linemen. Really, the magic number is 15 at minimum. That's the minimum number of offensive linemen you want to be at, so they will drop down a little bit. They have, 11 guys that would have been here for the spring, and then you add Marcus Henderson. Talk about getting bigger. Marcus Henderson, 6'5", 300, who's dropped a lot of weight. I think he was up as much as 340, wasn't he, Danny, at one point? So he's dropped a ton of weight. 6'5", 300. Ray Curry, 6'5", 315, and Jalen St. John, 6'5", 310. So... And St. John may be upwards of 6'6", actually, but so you are adding a good bit of size to that group. So, and that's probably the most highly regarded group that Arkansas has brought in since 2014 when they had Sebastian Totola, Frank Ragnow, and Brian Wallace. All those guys were well regarded. And actually, Sebastian was the lowest regarded of that bunch, but ended up winning the Jacobs Blocking Trophy 2015, I think. So,
and quick note on Stromberg and Limmer. Both of them are listed right at just under 300, but we're told both of them are actually slightly over 300 now. So they have since joined that 300-pound club. And Brady Latham is a guy that we keep hearing really good things about. He actually trimmed back, lost some weight, and I think he's in the process of putting on some positive weight now. So. Heard a lot of really good things about Brady this offseason.
Danny, what's your starting offensive line? You go first.
Oh, man. Left tackle, I think I'd probably roll with Cunningham for the time being. Left guard, I think that's up in the air. It could be Limmer. Center, we'll see what Ty Clary can do, but I'd probably roll with Luke Jones, see what he can bring. Right guard, Stromberg. Right tackle, maybe Noah Gatlin. Yeah, I think that's what I think that's how I'd have it right now.
I think that's pretty similar to what I would go. Right now I've got just penciled in just for the sake of laying out the offensive line. I've got Clinton in there just because.
Yeah, I could see.
Just because there's a change, you got to change, and obviously something happened last year because this was a guy that was rolling with the first group in the spring.
Yep.
Even had an injury and came back for the spring game and started at right guard, and then just completely fell off the map. And you have to sacrifice that we were hearing good things about him last spring before the season, and he slid off. But Pittman did mention him specifically, not only as a guy that's done well in the offseason, but also a guy that's been leading. And Clinton goes about 6'6", 315, I believe.
Where would you put him? Where are you putting him?
Right now I had him penciled in at the starting left guard, but I made a strong note that, Ryan Winkle, Bo Limmer, Chibozie Nwana, and Luke Jones are all guys that could absolutely challenge him for that starting spot. But I think it's pretty well popular opinion, I would think, that you'd have Cunningham at left guard, Cunningham at left tackle. That left guard spot is a little bit up in the air, but I penciled in Shane Clinton. Center, Ty Clary, most likely. Right guard, Ricky Stromberg. And then right tackle, I think Noah Gatlin overtakes at that spot. And then, you've got Dalton Wagner, who be your swing guy, I guess. That's kind of how I think it'll play out.
It's not bad. I tell you, the real key there is the guy you mentioned first, Shane Clinton. People kind of forget about him. Redshirt junior now. He's getting older.
He's drawn praise from every single coaching staff.
I guess
it's just
stud.
It's Bielema's staff, Morris's staff, and now Pittman. Each of them have given him praise. And you're right. Off-season stud. I remember my coach, Eddie Mac Harper, used to take a shot at me, and he'd call me a Wednesday All-American back in high school.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but He's got a ton of talent.
I hope Shane finally gets his shot this
Danny,
year.
he's a get off the bus first type of guy. He looks.
Yep.
I mean, he looks like an SEC offensive lineman is supposed to look, and he's drawing the right praise. But he just, when it comes to the season, he just hasn't been there.
Yeah, my initial Shane Clennon story started in Kansas City at the Rivals camp back before we switched to 24/7 Sports, which we're really thrilled about.
Yeah.
But went to a camp up there and started watching these offensive linemen, and I kept seeing this guy over and over just whipping people. So I went up to him. I said, "Hey, man, what's your name?" He said, "I'm Shane Clennon. I'm committed to Arkansas. We talk all the time." I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." And so right off the bat, I fell in love with this kid as a player. And then, I really, really went to bat for him before he even got here. I was thinking, man, this kid's going to play early and often. And I had a really good feeling about him. Here we are. You look up, he's a redshirt junior this year. And so far, he hasn't gotten that chance. So when I say, an offseason stud, I'm hoping this year he'll change that narrative because we do hear it every year. A lot of people have high praise for him, and then we never see him get a shot.
There's a couple of guys every year where you're like, this guy's doing really well in the spring. I remember early in Bielema's career, there was like a couple of walk-on linebackers that he just praised and ended up like starting or put him in the second group, and then after a couple of games, you never heard from him again. So speaking of linebackers, Danny, another guy that's put on a lot of good weight is Zach Zimos, and that's how you pronounce it. A lot of people want to say Zimos, but it is Zimos, something special. Remember the Zima commercials? That's what I think of every single time I read his name off. But Zach Zimos, who is up 16 pounds to 227 pounds. And I'll say this, a source inside the program, very close inside the program, told me last summer that the most athletic linebacker on the team might be Zach Zimos. He just don't look for him this year because he's skinny. But he just needed to add some weight. That's what he told me. And you know who he reminds me of? Just because he is so thin right now, and maybe it's because he's from the state of Texas.
Caleb Miller.
How
about that?
Yeah, Caleb Miller came to Arkansas as a 6'3" beanpole. Now, Zimos might be a little bit more well-regarded than Caleb was. But Caleb ended up, this would have been back in, when he enrolled in Arkansas, it would have been like 99, 2000, 99, something like that. But he was a 2004 NFL draft pick, 80th overall, third round.
Sulphur Springs, Texas,
Cincinnati Bengals, Sulphur Springs, Texas. And where's Zimos from? Richmond, Texas?
Oh, man, I ought to know this. Where's Zach from? Richmond, I believe.
Richmond.
Fort Ben Travis.
Yeah. So, anyway, it just kind of, I don't know, kind of reminds me of each other just because Caleb was very athletic, but he needed to add some weight and ended up being a really good linebacker.
Hope he plays like Caleb.
Yeah, that would be
Caleb was a stud, man. He could run them down. He had that. Sometimes he'd wear that high neck brace, that 43 and that curly hair, just running them down, sideline to sideline.
Real good kid too. I say kid, he's like 39 years old now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Zach's got. That linebacker group, man. Boy, you pull for people like Zach and Deion Edwards to really have a good senior year. Because, man, there's some real question marks in that group. I think some of these freshmen are going to have to come in and play. Really curious about this Keelan Burrell kid. Are we going with Burrell or are we going Burley?
I'm saying Burrell. I think the coaches announced it Burrell, but, that's what I'm going with.
I've heard it both, but he's wearing number 33, 6 foot 219. That's a pretty good starting weight, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good starting weight, especially he was listed at about 205 as a recruit. Yeah. I don't think that he's 6 foot based on what I've heard from other people.
I don't think so.
Probably pushing 5'11", maybe even a tad shorter. And with him, you'd kind of compare him maybe to a Sam Olajubutu type. I mean, but taller, or a Josh Harris, but taller than him. Josh Harris was a really a tackling machine in practice. Studs. But I think that Burrell is bigger than them. But when I look at his tape, and that can be misleading, but he doesn't look 6 foot to me. But I do hear it. He has a stout build. This is a guy. This is what's interesting about Burrell. he was listed as the number 106 overall prospect in the entire country at one point. And this would have been in March of 2018, I believe, right before he went to the opening. And so maybe, I know he didn't run a great shuttle, didn't have a great vertical. I think he might have scratched his 40 time. And then, of course, there are other players that come into the picture. But he was the top defensive prospect at one point in the state of Louisiana. And that was very early on. But I would imagine that's largely based on, film study and stuff like that. And then maybe he didn't measure up, is what I'm thinking when they got to camp. Maybe he didn't put up great measurables. Maybe he didn't, jump or run as fast as they had hoped. And maybe also, this also happens, he didn't grow very much.
That's exactly where I was going.
Right, there have been players that have come through here.
2 years ago.
The kid who was probably the best athlete in my junior high was, taller and faster than everybody. Never grew taller than 5'11". I don't know that he was recruited in any sport. When we
all
had
have
others
one
in
of
that
those,
class who
don't we?
were. Yeah. So
dude used to dominate us.
Yeah.
And everybody slowly started creeping up and catching up with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, Danny, anything else you want to chime in on? You watching any good shows here? I'll tell this, and I think you started watching it maybe last night, but Tiger King on Netflix is...
It's entertaining, but I'll tell you what, it's super sad.
Oh, my gosh, it's so sad.
Like, incredibly sad.
Yeah.
So, I probably wasn't expecting that. I'm not a huge fan of super sad like that.
But it's also hysterical and typical and like what you would expect out of somebody, running, and not just one person, but each person who is running one of these types of, what do you call it? One person calls it a big cat rescue
safari.
And
a
zoo and stuff. But I mean, they're breeding these big cats and stuff. And
these people are nuts, Trey. Like, wow.
It is.
These are real people.
It is exactly what you would expect out of somebody who is super enthralled with big cats. And I mean,
it's a rough.
I don't want to spoil it, but check it out.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah. Anything else to add,
outside
Danny?
of that?
Yeah.
No, I finished up my World War II in color.
Oh yeah,
over the weekend.
I'm about halfway through that one.
We won, by the way.
That's good. That's good. I didn't know that. That's good. So
spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
There was no winner there, I promise you.
No, there wasn't.
It was a rough one too.
Yeah, I go in like spurts of things like that. Like I watched maybe 4 episodes and then didn't watch it for a long time, picked up 4 more. So, but I'm like, I think about halfway through it. But it is cool to watch that kind of stuff in color. I think with anything going back, like real old stuff, boxing. For some reason, I've been watching all this boxing stuff lately. I got into a wormhole of knockouts and, watching some of the old Muhammad Ali fights and stuff, like when he was real young and just so fast, because I've always had the stance that like nobody, Mike Tyson in his prime, when he's like 22 years old, that nobody could beat him. But I'm starting to, I've watched a lot of like Muhammad Ali highlights and stuff like that and some of the bigger fights, but watching like some full length stuff of him, especially when he was young, before he had like 3.5 years off of boxing because of the draft dodging and all that stuff. To be 6'3" and that fast and move like he does. But anyway, that's kind of where for some reason I'll find myself in a boxing wormhole.
This guy will never be remembered in the same group as Tyson or Ali. It's Tyson Fury, something else, man.
Yeah.
He's something else.
Those big guys, they're so big now. He
does not get the credit.
6'9".
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's 6'9".
I still take Tyson. I think I still take Mike Tyson in his absolute prime.
Boy.
I don't know if anybody could have beaten him. Maybe Ali.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to jump into that wormhole.
Yeah. I get stuck in stuff like 30-second fights and stupid stuff like that. That's where I find my wormholes. Yeah. All right, Danny.
Yeah, if I do that, it'll never quit, and I'll never get anything done today.
Yeah. You got to
back to talking to kids.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate you, Danny.
See you.
That's Danny West. Again, you can read most of Danny's stuff for a VIP subscription at HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. And again, right now, that is 50% off. Or you can sign up for $1 for your first month. But I definitely recommend the 50% off annual subscription because we're getting sports back. It's going to happen. This thing's going to come and go, hopefully. Not without losses, not without casualties, but definitely everybody out there, take care of yourself. And if you're interested in reading our VIP recruiting stuff, sign up for our 50% off. Or if you want the free content, because we still are doing a lot of free content. I mean, it's almost like you feel an obligation to help keep sports fans entertained. So we are doing a bunch of free stuff as well. But sign up for our 24/7 Sports Arkansas newsletter at HawgSports.com. All right, everybody. I want to get into your questions now. Where are my questions? My mother says, touch my face. Don't touch your face, Trey. My mother says, good morning. I've been in quarantine, by the way, since Friday, not last Friday, but the Friday before. I have not left the house. I haven't had a reason to leave the house, so I haven't left. So I've been locked down since then. So if we got anything, it came from before then. Anyway, good morning, Mom. I've been like Zooming with my mom and with my friends, and what is it called? Party. This is the one. This is my favorite one. Like I've done Zoom meeting with people at 24/7 with my mom, FaceTime, but house party is fun. You can play games with friends and stuff like that, like trivia and other kinds of stuff. But that's been a fun one. It like notifies you when people are available and stuff. So, but house party is a good app to download if if you need a little bit of social interaction. Tina Thornberry says, Woo Pig Suey. Caden Sanders says, I like the show. Appreciate you, Caden. Thanks for tuning in. Sheila Brown Hannah says, thank goodness for some sports update. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. Christopher Eric says, smile, buddy. Yeah, it's hard to smile. Shelly Brown says, VIP is worth it. Thank you, Shelly. Appreciate that. Donnie A. Butt says, love the VIP board. The VIP board is the Razor's Edge Premium Forum. If you want to get in and discuss with like-minded Razorback fans, we've got all kinds of great discussions from hypotheticals to movies to watch to other Razorback topics on our VIP forum, the Razor's Edge. Again, that's HawgSports.com. There's no promo code or anything to take advantage of our 50% off deal, which again ends tonight at 10:59 p.m. Brian Ford is a bad fisherman, says Yancey Long. Brian Ford, do you have a rebuttal? Donnie Butt says they could do a virtual tour of campus. Yes. And again, that's what Kansas has kind of done. They've done some virtual stuff like that. Maurice Norman says, and they are doing stuff like that. They're doing, Zoom and, doing all the things that they're allowed to do. Some of this stuff, centers around the recruits having to get in touch with them, but that's not hard to do. I mean, you can, because the text messages and stuff, that's pretty much all unlimited, and you can say, hey, give me a call when you get a chance. Maurice Norman says, I think we will be okay. Better blocking for the quarterback so they can throw the ball. I do think the offensive line is going to, one of the big reasons that you brought Sam Pittman, and also we got to mention Brad Davis on offensive line coach, who's been a protege of his of sorts. But one of the main reasons you brought him is so Arkansas can start winning again up front in the trenches. And if you can do that, then that is a big start in the right direction. I don't mean to undermine like wide receivers and stuff, because I do think you got some guys that can be special on this team like Traylon Burks, Trey Knox. But it's easier to go out and get a big-time wide receiver than it is to get a big-time offensive lineman. It just is. There just aren't a lot of 6'5", 320-pound kids that can move well enough to play offensive line in the SEC. Donnie A. Butt says the man in the high castle. I actually started that. I might get back into that. It's a good recommendation. Donnie Butt says, Mike Tyson's voice made me laugh the first time I heard it. Yeah. Donnie says, I think Foreman could have taken Tyson in his prime. I don't know. In that era, obviously Muhammad Ali is number one. Foreman's up there. Joe Frazier. There's a few other good ones, obviously. I would say that Larry Holmes was a later era after that. Steve Culver says, any updates on future recruits in spring and signing in basketball? No update on when the signing stuff is going to take place yet. But I think Arkansas is in good shape. There hasn't been any sign that they're going to lose anybody. Steve Miller says Mason Jones go pro or not. So we haven't touched on Mason Jones, and basically what Mason said is a decision is coming soon. I think what you're going to see is Mason say, yeah, I am going to test the waters for the NBA, and you can do that and pull your name out. The question is, what does testing the waters look like? what does that look like for a guy that's considering going pro? Definitely hope that those guys return. Isaiah Joe, Mason Jones. I mean, they could be so salty next year. I mean, like really, really could be. Like we could be talking about one of Arkansas's best teams in a long time. And you talk about you're going to lose Jimmy Whitt, and that's going to hurt. Obviously, Adrio Bailey did some really good things this season for him too. At times, you're going to lose some other guys, but Gene Silla is another one. But I mean, the prospects of bringing in Moody, Davis, KK, all those guys. I mean, all the four, I guess they're all top 100 guys. They're all 4-stars. The 4 freshmen coming in, the likelihood that they're going to add, a grad transfer also. You've got 3 more sit ones who are going to be eligible next year who, I mean, all should provide some type of impact. They could be salty, man. If Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe come back next year, I mean, they really, really could be a dangerous basketball team. They were dangerous this year, and they had huge deficiencies. I mean, we're talking about what are their deficiencies going to be next year? I mean, they might have some youth with those 4 new guys. Shaping up to be a pretty good team, possibly. I do think that there's something to be said for Mason Jones, and if he comes back next year, you talk about potential legendary status just from going from having the season that he had this year to next year probably not having the same type of season, but maybe leading Arkansas deep into the tournament. I mean, they haven't been to the Sweet 16 since 96, 95, 96 season, I think. What position do you think this hurts the most? Which one does it affect the least? You mean just not having stuff? I mean, quarterback, obviously, you've got new quarterbacks. You're installing a new offense. Defense, usually the learning curve is smaller. Usually the defense ideally jumps out ahead of the offense. And the offense, is about getting in sync more. So quarterback, definitely the most. And then, defense in general, I would say the least. Specifically, probably linebacker and defensive line because you do have a lot of guys returning at that area. Secondary, you've got guys returning, but you're also going to be relying on some new players. Like a Miles Slusher possibly, Devin Bush, Jalen Catalon, just to name a few. I don't know what you're sending Brandon Eagleston, but a lot of emojis. Ian Robb says, hi. Steve Fishvot says, when do you feel like college football will really get to start back, May or June? I just don't know. I wish I did know, but, I mean, it feels like we're going, I don't want to say the wrong direction, but there's definitely, I think the hope for most of us is that this thing behaves like some other similar types of diseases. Not all of them do behave like this, but, some of them, when it gets to be warmer months, struggle a little bit more to – they're still hanging around. People still get the flu in the summer, right? It's just the rate at which, it transmits to people drops pretty significantly. This is obviously way more contagious than the flu, but the hope is that the summer months help and that maybe some of these drugs that they're talking about, the malaria drug, that maybe that works out and really helps people with their symptoms. Because when we move away from this being something that is considered deadly, then things can turn. And if it becomes less contagious and if people are following the protocols, states are starting to shut down their stay-at-home orders. Louisiana has one. Who else has one? California has one. A lot of states are adopting them now. And so now you've got a neighboring state. I know someone that has coronavirus. Last time I was on the show, I knew someone who has it. Now I know someone who has it. It's getting, it's amping up. Ian Robb says, hello from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Renee Clifton Stroinsky says, I've been here all my life. I almost touched my face again. Never have I ever miss all my Hogs every day of the year. Sad. Devontae Williams from Jacksonville committed. Getting another 7-3 player to eligibility immediately was on KNWA last night. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Donnie Butt says, Joe will come back. Mason still worries me. Renee Clifton Stroinsky says, not sure about Isaiah, but I know for a fact that Mason's mom wants him to stay another year. Again, Mason Jones could end up, I think he has reached legendary status, but he could reach just like superstardom type status in the state of Arkansas. Brandon Ingleson says, sorry, my phone went crazy. I was wondering what happened, Brandon. Chase Hogan Jones says, thanks for providing great content despite the mess. Donnie Buss says, New York, yes. All right. I think we've done it, everybody. Again, I want to remind everybody, sign up for our 50% off offer. It's a cool time to sign up if you want, if you're wanting discussion with Razorback fans. Things are rolling at HawgSports, and it's a great community of people. It's something that's very important to us. The Razor's Edge has always been very important. Again, sign up for the newsletter. Also, breaking news in your email inbox. But 50% off for your annual subscription, or $1 for your first month. Again, the 50% off deal ends tonight at 10:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Be sure to follow the page on Facebook. There's nothing else coming, so if you're done with the video, just go up to the top right. I think there's a follow button. Follow the page if you haven't done so already, so you're notified anytime these pop up. Also, if you want to be notified on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified anytime we upload a new video. Interact with the video. Share it with somebody you think might like it. Lord knows, this day and age, we need as much sports discussion as we can get. So share the video with your friends if you think they might like it. Also, I want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a nice review if you want to take a moment to write something. But please throw us that 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcast right now. And available anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. All right, everybody, we'll be back with you again soon, most likely Thursday, maybe before then if there's some type of breaking stuff that we want to discuss. I want to thank Danny West for joining us. Thank you for interacting with the video and for your questions as well. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.